example, you could lead it off with the Mimikyu and then go for parting shot, switch out, and depending on what your opponent did, whether he protected or switched, switch in, for example, the Gigalith, and then also set up Trick Room to make sure you're ready for a sweep.
I really like when you combine parting shot with, for example, an Arcanine to shuffle around Intimidates.
Yeah, I love that too.
Since he doesn't run an Arcanine, but he runs Tapu Koko, which may run, for example, Volt Switch.
Yes.
Bettering your ball position is like really good. So we have seen really cool combinations with Sivallai using like Scarf, Choice Scarf,
yes.
And going for a really quick explosion. And Mimikyu could be potentially setting up Trick Room, for example. So this could be an option, since, as you said, Jamie's team doesn't have that much answers to Trick Room once it's set up. So I'm really curious if Jason really goes for that mode, if he tries to get really fast knockouts and set up Trick Room, or if he just tries to bring himself in a good position and getting the knockouts later on with maybe a fast Tapu Koko.
Yes, certainly. So once again, it's one of the biggest stories in VGC, Trick Room against countering the Trick Room, and whether we're going to see that in the first place. Since the team can also really work without setting up Trick Room, since with Tapu Koko and Garchomp you also have a pretty strong mode that doesn't really rely on setting up Trick Room. But seeing as Jason is leading off here with his Mimikyu and Tapu Koko, it looks like he really wants to set that up.
Yeah, and Jamie sends out his Celesteela and the Tapu Lele, and we see Tapu Lele overriding the electric terrain that Tapu Koko set up with its own psychic terrain. As you already said, it doesn't indicate that Lele doesn't wear a Choice Scarf, but it's more likely that Lele is not a Choice Scarfed Pokemon here. And yeah, this situation looks really interesting. That Tapu Koko could maybe Volt Switch out into something slow while Mimikyu could set up, or what do you think?
I think that he really needs to be aware that a potential play from his opponent could be that Jamie's Tapu Lele goes for any move that could break the disguise from Mimikyu, and then Celesteela can go for a Heavy Slime, which is super effective against Mimikyu and will knock it out in one hit. So we're seeing the Volt Switch coming out, and now, I mean, yeah, it's really tough because now the Volt Switch was done, and if he just sets up the Trick Room, he might be in a lot of trouble if Jamie has read into this.
And Gigalith comes in for the Volt Switching.
Tapu Koko,
we see Nature Power from Tapu Lele into what was a Tapu Koko slot. Gigalith taking a huge amount of damage while Celesteela Leech Seeds the Mimikyu, and there we see the setup. Mimikyu goes for Trick Room, still got its disguise, it's hiding behind a disguise. Gigalith is ready to fire off some big attacks, and I'm really curious how Jamie wants to adapt to this situation.
Yeah, Nature Power is already a very interesting move because, of course, depending on which terrain is active, Nature Power changes the move it turns into. So in Psychic terrain, sure, it's just the regular Psychic, but as long as, as soon as there is another Tapu in place, for example, if Tapu Koko switches in now, Nature Power would be Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
So this could either mean that he's like a choice variant and has it just as a filler move, or that he's holding the Normalium Z and wants to be able to switch up which Z move his Tapu Lele uses. So now Trick Room is up, and Gigalith should be able to do a ton of damage to Tapu Lele, and Celesteela, though, on the other hand, usually able to take those rock-type attacks relatively well.
And we see a Protect from Tapu Lele to not get hit by the Rock Slide. Gigalith is firing off, doing almost half the damage to Celesteela, and it flinched, and Mimikyu just goes for Play Rough into the protecting Tapu Lele. So Jamie knew who to protect here, got a bit unlucky by getting flinched from the Rock Slide, but that's how Rock Slide works, right?
Yeah, certainly, and Celesteela was able to take that okay-ish, but that still did a ton of damage. So either this is a Celesteela that didn't really care too much about physical attacks, or that Gigalith might have an item like Choice Band or Hard Rock boosting its rock-type attacks. Yeah, Mimikyu, it's not in the best of positions, but if Jason expects this Tapu Lele to survive the Rock Slide with like a little bit of health, then Play Rough would just be enough to get the knockout here. And by going for Play Rough here, you also cover for a potential guard jump switch in.
Yeah, that was really clever. And we see Tapu Lele again protecting. Gigalith firing off again another Rock Slide. Let's see how much damage it does this time to Celesteela. Again, a good amount of damage. Celesteela gets off a Flash Cannon into the Gigalith slot. Takes it. It is enough to take the Gigalith out. And let's have a look what Mimikyu is going to target.
Yeah, probably just going to be another Play Rough in the Tapu Lele, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
And, oh, into the Celesteela, in fact. Okay.
Into the Celesteela.
Yeah, barely not enough. Flash Cannon is a pretty interesting move choice, because generally Heavy Slam is what most people opt to go for, since Celesteela is so heavy that against most Pokemon, even if they're like normal sized, I should say, you still get that maximum base power, and that makes it a really powerful move. However, on the other hand, as soon as there is a Celesteela in place, usually Arcanine on the opponent's side is not too far, and since it's such a common Pokemon, in fact, Jason is not using it, but usually you will always find yourself in a position where there's probably an Arcanine switching in, so Intimidate plays a factor, and a lot of people have tried out Flash Cannon. Some say it's a little underwhelming, but others, like Jamie for example, think that it's the better play at the moment at least.
Yeah, did you recognize the Celesteela got a special attack boost?
Yes.
So it's heavily trained into special attack. And we see Tapu Koko getting in there in the place of the fainted Gigalith. Setting up electric terrain again, which means nature power from Tapu Lele now is an Thunderbolt.
Yes.
And Celesteela is probably in range for some Shadow Claw or something, right?
Yeah, but seeing as he went for Play Rough twice there, where he could have gone for Shadow Claw, I doubt he has it. So must have some other offensive moves. And Tapu Koko switching in here in the Trick Room is not the best of positions. By the way, it's pretty funny that Mimikyu still had the disguise active despite being at 50%. But ooh, and there we're seeing a Z move. Oh, the Mimikyu is actually an attacker.
The Mimikyu is an attacker, and if I'm correctly, this is gonna be a Twinkle Tackle. This attack just looks cute, but believe me, it does a ton of damage, and it is aimed at the Tapu Lele, another fairy friend. And what I can say is it takes it out.
Yeah, bye-bye Tapu Lele. Okay, so interesting option here to go with that Z move on Mimikyu. The item choice on Mimikyu is always an interesting one, because thanks to the disguise, some of the survivability items that we see on other Pokemon don't make too much sense, because you already have that inbuilt disguise to protect you. Like a 50% berry, like the defensive stats of Mimikyu aren't as great. So some people opt to go for the Mental Herb, but then again, Taunt is also not super common. But yeah, going for the Z move gives you another option here. However, now seeing that Guard Jump switched in, I do think Play Rough from regular Mimikyu without the Z move usually not enough to get that knockout here. And I think it's the last turn of Trick Room, so if this is the regular version of this team, this Tapu Koko should be Assault Vest, and that could be really bad, because Guard Jump, now outspeeding the Tapu Koko in Trick Room, can just pretty easily go for an Earthquake to get a double knockout here.
And as you said, Tapu Koko may be Assault Vest and have no Protect, so it switches out. But Celesteela goes for a Flash Cannon into the Mimikyu, taking it out with a critical hit. That didn't matter too much, because the Flash Cannon is already a super effective move on Fairy types. But again, Celesteela gets a special attack boost. Jamie's Guard Jump using Earthquake, and Jason's Guard Jump has to take some damage. Still sitting there with quite comfortable HP, and now the Tapu Koko from Jason has to come in again.
Yeah, that Guard Jump actually took Earthquake pretty well, so looks to be a little bit more defensively built. So now Tapu Koko comes back in. Trick Room is now over, and Jason really has to come up with a miracle here. So on the one hand, he still does have Tapu Koko, which is the fastest Pokemon in the field and really threatens Celesteela. On the other hand though, his opponent still has one Pokemon in the back. Guard Jump is still at full health, so he really needs to make something here.
And we see the Dazzling Gleam from Jason's Tapu Koko not doing that much to the opposing Guard Jump. Celesteela avoids the Rock Slide coming out of Jason's Guard Jump. And do we see a flinch
Yeah,
on
he was-
Jamie's guard jump? But the flash cannon from Celesteela in return will do a good amount of damage and takes that guard jump out.
Yeah, he was playing for the flinch and he got it, but another side effect. Yeah, that's just something else that can happen if you go for Rock Slide. Misses the Celesteela, and that should be game now. Celesteela getting the 3rd knockout in this game, and yeah, it's really turning into an offensive threat here. But yeah, the game is almost over now. Celesteela might not live, but actually is able to survive this Dazzling Gleam, and Earthquake should finish off the game. So first win here in the first game here for Jamie, and Jason taking his first loss in the entire tournament.
Please don't blame us for putting you on stream and having the first loss, but still really well played.
Yep.
I'm still curious what Silvally is gonna do.
Yeah, or if we even are going to see it in the second game.
Yeah.
But
I hope
yeah,
so.
seeing how the first game went, I really think Jason might need to switch something up. But then again, we haven't really talked too much about Jamie. He's a player who's also really present in the online battling scene, really grinding those ladders and playing a lot of games there, also going for the first spot and so on. So he's someone who's really practiced and who going into a tournament like this also comes with plans. So I'm pretty sure that he knows about what the Japanese team did, right?
Yeah.
And so probably prepared a plan and how to handle that. The Tapu Lele and Celesteela lead, that looked pretty specific, if you know what I mean. That's probably not something that you come up with in team preview, but maybe something that you prepare at home.
Yeah, this is preparation, guys. Always, you see the good players prepare for tournaments. Once they prepare months, once they prepare 2 days.
Yep.
And once you prepare for months, you got a game plan to every common archetype of team. And as Jason is using a pretty common team out there, Jamie might have battled this kind of team once or twice or maybe 10 times or something. So I'm really curious now if we're gonna see the Silvally. Well, if it's played to its full potential, it's almost free, if played correctly, to get a really strong explosion off. When you threaten the Celesteela with Tapu Koko maybe, and go for Mimikyu switch in on that slot and something. So I'm really curious how Jason adapts this time.
I think for the second game, if I was Jason, I would try to go with guard jump, just because in the first game, okay, first of all, I think we're expecting Celesteela to come out from Jamie again because of how much work it just did. So guard jump doesn't really sound like a good plan against that. However, Mimikyu and Gigalith, both of them can't really deal with the Celesteela at all. So basing your entire game plan again around setting up Trick Room and then having that Celesteela with Flash Cannon that is just sitting there, Leech Seeds here and there. And once again, we're seeing that Celesteela and Tapu Lele lead. So as we were saying, probably prepared, but there he is.
Yeah, finally, Jason sends out the Mimikyu and the Silvally. I'm really glad this comes up, but unfortunately, there is no threat for the Celesteela right now from Tapu Koko, but I've already seen Silvalli's with Flamethrower and stuff like that, so it might have some trick here and there on its leaves to cover this one.
Yeah, so just to confirm again, this Silvally is actually normal type, as we could just read in game. Silvally, a very interesting Pokemon, because of course you can turn it into any type, right? But unfortunately, it's just it's really weird stat-wise, where usually it's not worth going for that. But with the Choice Scarf, players have found a way to make a lot of use of it. So here we see the parting shot onto that Celesteela, and that should also that can already change the game up a little bit, because in the first game we saw Celesteela getting those beast boosts here and there and KOing stuff left, right and center. So this time it might be a little more difficult.
Yeah, and Silvally switches out due to parting shot into the Gigalith, whereas Celesteela uses Leech Seed onto the Gigalith slot, and Mimikyu again sets up the Trick Room. So Gigalith is gonna be the one who moves first. Tapu Lele taking some chip damage. Celesteela special attack got drop. It can still kind of deal damage with Leech Seed and recover itself, but Gigalith is now free to fire off those big rock slides coming here and there.
Yeah, I really like what Jason was doing here with this lead. Silvally, as you mentioned, always there's the threat of explosion coming out, so Jamie really didn't want to lose the game on turn 1 if explosion comes out and he loses his Tapu Lele. So goes for the protect, however Jason anticipating that goes for parting shot, which not only makes the Celesteela way less threatening but also allows him to get a free switch into his Gigalith. So yeah, very well played here on Jason's end, and Jamie has to kind of come up with a way to climb back into this one. In the first game, he utilized a double protect, so I'm curious to seeing whether he wants to do and try the same thing again here.
And we see Jason switching out his Mimikyu for Celesteela, and Gigalith goes for a big rock slide, doing a huge amount of damage to the Tapu Lele and getting the flinch on the Tapu Lele as well.
Yeah, so really solid spot here for Jason. I'm not super sure if I agree with Jamie's decision to just try and go for another double protect here, since the chance is of course not that high. But he was probably anticipating a double up into that slot, so he really wanted to either get the double protect and nullify his opponent's turn, or, well, if it fails, then Tapu Lele gets knocked out and you get a free switch in. However, now it's a little awkward because Tapu Lele was able to survive that single rock slide since Jason switched out into Celesteela himself. So now he could go for another protect, but thinks that it's not worth anymore. However, since the threat of Mimikyu is gone, Garchomp can come in for free here.
Yeah, and again, Gigalith goes for another rock slide, doing again a good amount of damage to the Celesteela. And are we gonna see a Leech Seed? Yeah, we are seeing Jamie's Celesteela Leech Seeding Jason's Celesteela, and we see a flamethrower from Jason Celesteela
is that going to be enough? Oh, it gets the knockout just after Jamie used Leech Seed in both of Jason's Pokemon, so that is a very important knockout here, because not only does he get the special attack boost as well, but he also denies his opponent a lot of healing and yeah, will not take any damage from Leech Seed here. However, whatever comes into that slot, if it's the Tapu Lele, which doesn't have a great matchup against either of those Pokemon, but could really use some recovery here.
It could use some recovery, but it still needs to protect and just sit there and wait for Trick Room to go down. What I really like about how Jason played that is denying free switch-ins. This is what really good players are always thinking about. Do I want to give my opponent a free switch-in, or is it okay for me to just prepare the board better to get the knockouts later on and not? You know that, Marcus, you're a really good player, way better than me. And we see the Gigalith again switching out for the Mimikyu coming in, still with its disguise unbroken, and as expected, Tapu Lele goes for a protect to spare some time.
But Jason anticipating that, going for the Flash Cannon into Garchomp here.
Well, that damage wasn't that much. That Garchomp looks pretty bulky as well.
Yeah, especially considering that Celesteela is sitting at a boosted special attack.
Yeah, and Garchomp goes for an Earthquake, not doing any damage, but breaking the disguise from Mimikyu, and it looks kind of sad now.
So, yeah, Jason probably wants to find a knockout this turn, because Trick Room is over after this turn, I think. So getting off the Flash Cannon into the Tapu Lele slot, if Jamie decides to switch, which is still a very good option, and we haven't seen his last Pokemon yet, could be pretty important. And then Mimikyu is always threatening that Garchomp with the Twinkle Tackle or just the regular Prey Rough. So Jason has two options to get a KO this turn, and Jamie can only really deny one of them if he switches, unless he wants to try his luck again and go for another double protect with his Tapu Lele.
Those are getting more and more unlikely. You have to get lucky to get several protects in a row, and that Celesteela is, in my opinion, just basically free to target the Tapu Lele slot, and that maybe that Mimikyu wants to go for a Twinkle Tackle into the Garchomp slot, doing damage.
He goes for it again. So out of 7 moves that Tapu Lele used in the series, he was protected 6 times. I don't think I've seen that before.
No, Tapu Lele is such an aggressive Pokemon usually. It can deal loads amount of damage, but in this matchup, it wants to protect a lot. And then we see Garchomp going for another Earthquake, not doing damage to Celesteela at all, and doing a good amount of damage to Mimikyu, but not enough to take it out. But I am pretty sure that this huge Twinkle Tackle is more than enough to get the knockout on the Garchomp.
Yeah, and really interesting here, seeing that Garchomp was actually moving before the Mimikyu. So, yeah, indicating that this Mimikyu might in fact be a really speedy one, whereas the Garchomp, we've already talked about it, is more a like super bulky and defensive one. However, not quite defensive enough to take this Twinkle Tackle here from Mimikyu. And it looks like Jason really learned his lesson after that first game. Now switching things up a little bit, and it's not really too much. Like his Pokemon were still the same in the end. Of course, sure, like Silvella making an appearance here, but Mimikyu, Celesteela, and Gigalith, he's stuck with those. And this time though, it really worked out because he was able to just maneuver around and Trick Room a little bit better there, knocking out his opponents. Celesteela was a key ingredient to his victory here. But well, I mean, he still has to go through that Tapu Koko of his opponents.
Yeah, that Tapu Koko threatens that Celesteela, but it's a one-man show now. Tapu Koko is the only Guardian left on the field, and it has to defend a lot. So
very interesting thing here.
Yeah.
If he had switched in Tapu Koko in the other slot, he would have been able to get Leech Seed recovery, but he switched it in the other slot that wasn't Leech Seeded, so he wouldn't have been able to get that.
Ah,
that
nice
just
catch, Marcus.
Just on the side. So anyway, Jason here tying up the series 1-1, and it'll all come down to the deciding third game. And I definitely think that both all those players and the way they played their teams deserve to go into that third game. What do you think?
Definitely, it's like really close. We have seen Jamie really putting in work in the first match, and then we see Jason coming back in the second match, adapting like a really, like you said, that play with leading off with Silvella plus Mimikyu and starting the mind games right off the bat, and then abusing that parting shot to get that Gigalith in safely. It's always cool to get a Trick Room set up like this in turn one basically, and then being able to dish out damage and being the one who moves first was really good. I'm really curious if Jason again tries to go this route and forcing the mind games from turn one on and trying to
those switching moves plus Trick Room turn 1 is a really interesting theme that we haven't really seen too much in previous formats. I mean, in theory, back in the day in 2013 and maybe 15 as well, you also had your Choice Scarf, Landorus, Therian form, and Cresselia. So it's a concept that has been around, but I think this year it's making a little bit of a return where with Tapu Koko especially, you can also go for moves like Skydrop and Trick Room, which is something that we haven't seen in this series, but is something that I would expect that Tapu Koko to also have, because it's really about securing both your Trick Room setter, in this case Mimikyu, and then also getting in your sweeper of choice, in this case the Choice Band Gigalith for free, or to basically ensure that it doesn't take too much damage upon switching in. And yeah, with those switching moves, Parting Shot and Volt Switch respectively, you're really able to maneuver around and get yourself into those positions. So I really like how Jamie was trying to put pressure on the Mimikyu early on with his Tapu Lele and Celesteela combination. And I think that this time he probably wants to knock out the Mimikyu before Trick Room goes up.
Yeah, I can see that as well. We see again Mimikyu Silvella lead and Arcanine Tapu Lele lead by Jamie. So no Celesteela this time around. Okay. Let's have a look if the Tapu Lele is gonna start attacking
or protect
several times. But now this opens again the opportunity to pressure with Explosion plus Trick Room, or if it's not going to explode, it must still go for Parting Shot. So
yeah, however, this time around, since Arcanine was in the lead of Jamie, Intimidate just went off, so Silvally will actually not be as powerful, and I'm not even sure if Explosion would be enough to knock out either the Tapu Lele or the Arcanine. So I think both trainers would be kind of okay if Explosion went off. However, it's really risky because you basically are saying, okay, like I'm giving up one of my Pokemon first turn. If my opponent double protects, then maybe I don't get anything out of it at all. Whoa! But he does go for it, and there it is. So let's see how much damage this is going to do.
Oh, doesn't affect Mimikyu, of course, and none of the Pokemon on Jamie's side use Protect, so both taking a good amount of damage, but not quite enough to take out any. And we see the Normalium, so the Nature Power turning into the Psychic right now and just breaking the disguise.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a waste maybe, so I'm pretty sure that was aimed at the Savella, hoping that he would catch the Gigalith on the switch and after a potential parting shot. But of course, after Explosion, well, there isn't any target anymore, so instead he will target down the disguise of Mimikyu. But now the question is, does Arcanine have Roar, or will it just go for a Flare Blitz here?
Yeah, as you just said, it goes for the Flare Blitz into the Mimikyu. Not taking it out,
survives.
taking some recall in return, and we see Mimikyu setting up the Trick Room, getting the field ready to bring that Gigalith into position, and I'm pretty sure Jason is gonna sending in that, right?
Of course, I would be shocked if there was any other Pokemon than Gigalith coming in here. By the way, something we haven't really mentioned yet, even if Jamie went for a double protect the first turn and Savella's Explosion wouldn't have done any damage, that still also would have meant that the next turn he would have had to rely on chance to get more of those protects out, essentially giving Gigalith a free Choice Band boosted Rock Slide. And maybe that's also part of Jason's plan. It's like a calculated risk. Now he was able to do a ton of damage. Of course, Jamie can now protect both his Pokemon to stall out a turn of Trick Room. But yeah, once again, the Gigalith is on the field and it's ready to throw some rocks.
Yeah, there's probably some Guard Jump or Celesteela in the back, just to have the switch into the Rock Slide. And as we can see, Jamie withdraws his Arcanine, sending in the Celesteela into the same slot. And are we going to see a second switch? Yeah, we are seeing Jason withdrawing his Mimikyu and sending in the Celesteela, again bringing himself into a good position versus Jamie's Celesteela. This was a good switch.
Yeah, I actually like this play from both players. Both of them getting in their Celesteelas, and it's really beneficial to use your turns of Trick Room or to like put pressure on your opponent so you can effectively stall the Trick Room. So what Jamie was doing is he's just protect switching. He doesn't want to do any damage. He wants to wait until Trick Room is over and until his Pokemon are moving first. So by switching out Arcanine, he preserves Intimidate, can come back in later or maybe even this turn, drop Intimidate on the Gigalith, lower the damage output it can do with Rock Slide. And then how is Jason even going to take out Celesteela from Jamie, right? So, because the last turn he used 2 full-powered Rock Slides as well as Flamethrower. Interesting, by the way, that Celesteela of Jamie doesn't have any sort of recovery, as it seems. We're seeing just an Earthquake here, though, maybe expecting Arcanine on the switch-in, but since we expected this to be a Choice Band, Gigalith also didn't have too much of another choice here.
Yeah, he didn't have a choice, but I like how he picked Earthquake, and like Jamie saw that maybe coming with switching in Celesteela instead of Guard Jump, and we see Jason Celesteela using Flamethrower into Jamie's Celesteela, not doing that much damage. As you already said, it takes loads amount of damage to take that bulky Celesteela out from Jamie.
I'm actually not 100% sure if I agree with Earthquake as the move of choice here, because as we said, Celesteela really tough to deal with, and now especially after his main attacker Gigalith is locked in a move that cannot even touch Celesteela. So as long as Jamie is able to get off some Leech Seeds here and there, his Celesteela should be super safe here, and even with Mimikyu still being in the back for Jason, I don't really see how that is going to affect Celesteela at all. So yeah, even just Celesteela could potentially take this game as long as Jamie, of course, finds a way how himself can deal with his opponent Celesteela. And however, having that Arcanine still on the field at the moment, I'm sure he's probably going to protect this turn, maybe activate his berry with Sandstorm and then switch out, switch in again, and then I think Jamie's in a really good spot here. And
Jason doesn't want his Gigalith to be locked into Earthquake, so he withdraws it, sends in Mimikyu. We're gonna see a Flash Cannon from Jamie's Celesteela into the incoming Mimikyu, getting the knockout there. Just that Gigalith wants to come back in there. Celesteela again gets a special attack rise, and Jamie's Arcanine getting Flare Blitz into the protecting Celesteela from Jason.
Yeah, really curious here that he was willing to just give up his Arcanine. I think just going for the Protect was maybe a little bit safer, or he was so sure that his opponent was going to switch out Gigalith. Either way, maybe he was also just thinking like, hey, even if Gigalith goes for Earthquake, knocks out my Arcanine, I will get the knockout with Flash Cannon, and then get the special attack boost, and then I can 1v1 my opponent's Celesteela.
Yeah.
But either way, he caught the switch correctly, and Jason is with the back against the wall here.
Yeah, Jason still wants to win this game for sure. That's why he switched out Gigalith, and it was like, okay, I have to reset the move I locked into. And okay, we are gonna see Jamie using Protect on both Pokemon just to scout which move there is coming. So Gigalith locks itself into Rock Slide, and Celesteela tried to use Flamethrower onto Jamie's Celesteela. So Arcanine takes again a little bit of Sandstorm damage, but it has been hungry the last round, so it restored half its health by eating a berry. And now Jason really needs a good plan.
Yeah. Gigalith with Choice Band also super immobile and not really flexible at all. So if Jamie wanted to, he can like scout out what exactly does Gigalith do, what does Celesteela do, and he can also just go for attacks at this point. Maybe just Flare Blitz into the Celesteela and Flash Cannon the Gigalith. Could be enough to almost take the game here this turn.
And Arcanine goes for Flare Blitz into Jason Celesteela, but not getting the knockout. In return, Jason Celesteela flamethrowers Jamie Celesteela, whereas Jamie Celesteela Flash Cannons the Gigalith and takes it out. So Jason is now down to only has Celesteela, which is still an Arcanine there.
Yeah, that's probably not going to be enough. He does have leftovers, whereas his opponent still hasn't revealed his item. So, yeah, I don't really know what item that could be on Celesteela, since he also has used Protect, so it's not some and Leech Seed, so it's not some sort of Assaultus variant. Either way, though, Jamie after that second game where it looked like maybe Jason has found a way, in the second game is able to climb back. No Rock Slide, flinches, or anything like that, having any impact on the game.